During this winter storm, leaning on the help from others can make all the difference. That's why One Nashville Man and his nonprofit are making sure people have what they need. Alexandria Adams joining us now. Alexandria, how are they helping out here?
Yeah, well, it's all about community, Hunter. Neighbors helping neighbors. Guy Cherkesky and his brother co-founded TaskWatch. So this allows people to hire people for tasks that they might consider to be too small to hire a company to actually do, like changing the batteries in a smoke detector. And from that idea, they also founded the nonprofit side, TaskWatch Task Force. Right now, with this winter weather, they're looking for volunteers to help with things like picking up groceries and salting driveways.
Take care of people that have mobility issues, the elderly people that cannot do some of the tasks by themselves, people that need help with their pets when, I don't know, they're outside, they just came out of surgery and they cannot take care of their pets. People are just grateful. People that felt for that, people so that nobody's thinking about them, nobody think about them, nobody care about them. They've got to realize that someone does.
Yeah, someone always caring out there. He goes on to say that they also need stores to donate shovels, gloves, and ice melt. Well, TaskWatch Task Force currently serves the Metro Nashville area within about a 30 to 35 mile radius. So if you'd like to volunteer or you're needing some assistance right now, you can visit their website. That is TaskWatchTaskForce.org.
All right, I love the idea. Alexandria, thank you.